Hello, Shades here. So, before I carry on with my Warhammer Fantasy lore videos, I thought I would do something a little bit different and create a top 10 list. My top 10 favourite Warhammer Fantasy characters. Now, the reason that I have decided to do this now is that, first of all, it would appear that any self-respecting YouTube channel has at least one top 10 list on it. So, this marks a milestone in my YouTubing career. The second reason is that there doesn't appear to be any other top 10 Warhammer Fantasy character lists on YouTube, so I thought I would get in there and be the first one to do it. The third reason is that I've been doing this channel for about 6 months now, and I've not made any videos that are personal to me. So I thought now feels like the right time to do a personal video. So anyway, I'm waffling. Without further ado, these are my top 10 favourite Warhammer Fantasy characters. And I'd just like to add that this list is based on the lore surrounding these characters. It has absolutely nothing to do with their statistics on the tabletop. So, enjoy. So, number 10. The first and greatest of all the vampire counts, Vlad von Karstein. Tied inextricably to the dark, mysterious land of Sylvania, a much-feared province within the Empire, Vlad von Karstein seems to have appeared out of nowhere. In 1797 of the Imperial calendar, the Elector Count of Sylvania, Otto von Drac, was at death's door, desperately fighting for his life, as he didn't want his brother Leopold, whom he deeply despised, to take the rulership. Just before death came to claim him, Vlad von Karstein appeared at their door at Drakenhof Castle, his presence putting all in the castle to fright. All that is, except Otto's beautiful daughter, Isabella. Otto, seizing on this moment, requested that Vlad take Isabella as his bride, so that he may die in some peace, knowing that this would erase his brother's claim to the throne. Vlad accepted, and when Isabella asked her new fiancé for a token of his love, Vlad walked calmly up to Leopold, who was bristling with anger, and with supernatural speed grabbed him and tore his beating heart out of his chest. Leopold's last sight being his own still beating heart in front of him, and his brother's now still face grinning back at him in victory. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is a proper vampire. Forget sparkling teenage emos feeding off of animals and falling in love with terrible actresses. Vlad von Karstein embodies the true Bram Stoker vampire, who sees humanity as mere prey to be ruled over and little by little consumed, yet still capable of love and a dark, majestic sense of honour. For whilst Vlad von Karstein is the most powerful of all the vampire counts, and wishes to rule over at first Sylvania and then the whole empire itself, he doesn't act out of sheer predatory cruelty. Vlad believes that being superior to us mere mortals, his dictatorship would bring order to the empire, much like the order a farmer brings when tending to his cattle. The story of Vlad and Isabella is also, in its own way, incredibly romantic as they prepared for and then carried out the first vampire war on the empire. Together as equals in love, they won victory after victory until they were besieging the imperial capital Altdorf itself. And when the war was ultimately lost and Vlad was killed by the Grand Theogenist Wilhelm III, who toppled him from the walls of Altdorf itself, sacrificing his own life as they both landed on wooden stakes, Isabella was found wandering through the corpses the next day, completely out of her mind, desperately searching for the body of her husband, eventually committing suicide, joining her husband, beloved, in death. That, my friends, is a proper vampire's tale, and that is why Vlad von Carstein is on this list, for he is the quintessential Lord of the Dead, and proper vampires that haven't undergone the Twilight treatment are cool. Number 9, and my choice is the venerable Lord Croak, the oldest of the Slann, the great mage priests of the lizardmen race. Now, the reason I've picked Lord Croak for this list is very simple. I love ancient history, I study ancient history, and there is no being more ancient in Warhammer fantasy lore than Lord Croak, as is engraved rather poetically on the ancient plaques that are worshipped by the lizardmen. Lord Croak was present at the birth of the world, and therefore fated to be present at its end. The Slann are some of the oldest beings in Warhammer. They are great toad-like creatures, and are the most powerful of all the races in the use of magic. They are physically incredibly weak, but to be honest, they don't really need to be physically strong. Why wield a sword when you have the magical power to tear whole regiments limb from limb, without really having to lift a finger? The general rule is the older the Slann, the more magically gifted they are, and with the youngest Slann being thousands of years old, just imagine how powerful the oldest ones are, and Lord Croak is the oldest of the old. There is one other little thing I should mention, however. Lord Croak is dead. You see, Slann are so powerful in their magics that when they die, their spirits are able to remain surrounding their dead mummified bodies, and these spirits are still able to alter the physical world and still cast these mighty spells. Therefore, Lord Croak's body is kept deep underground, safe within the most revered temple, and when needed, he is wheeled out to perform some of the most devastating magic imaginable, and then wheeled back in again. Dead Slann like Croak are given the name Relic Priests. Now, this is all incredibly fascinating and incredibly strange. However, the main reason for putting old Croaky on this list is simply the scope and scale of his life and death. Lord Croak is so old that he was one of the few Slann that travelled with those mysterious beings that created the intelligent races, the Old Ones. So, before coming to the Warhammer world, he was a space traveller. He was with the Old Ones when they found a suitable planet to settle on, and then aided them in forming it to their will. He was around when the Old Ones created the Polar Gates, and he was around when they fell and chaos came spilling into the world. Now, being the greatest of all magic users, he was crucial in keeping his race alive and protected against the uncountable demons that now ravished the world. And it was at this time that he died, taking with him 10 greater demons. I'll repeat that to let it sink in. 10 greater demons. To put that into perspective, in the present day, one greater demon has the power to wipe out entire armies. And the story doesn't end there. After his death, he continued to aid the lizard men as a mummified husk. He was around when the elven mage Calidor Dragon Tamer successfully siphoned off chaos from the world. He was around during the sundering of the elves and the war of the beards and the rise of Sigmar, etc, etc, etc. I think you get my point. Lord Croak has seen it all, and as someone who also makes videos on ancient history and loves old things, how could I not put Lord Croak on this list? The number 8 slot goes to Gorraunch, Lord of the Chaos Dragons. A Chaos Dragon is exactly what it says on the tin, a noble dragon brought low by the influence of chaos. The result is incredible mutations that can take many forms, however most seem to actually gain a second head. Gorraunch's head literally split down the middle to the base of his neck. They also naturally gain a rather disagreeable temperament, to put it extremely lightly. A Chaos Dragon is an incredibly powerful beastie, combining the strength, speed and power of a great drake with the magical powers that Chaos grants. Gaulrange is the first and most powerful of the Chaos Dragons, but his story is a rather sad one. It was during the time of Anarion, when dragons and elves fought together against the innumerable demon armies. Gaulrange back then was an honourable and majestic star dragon with the capabilities to take out many of the most powerful demons. And he did just that, fighting for countless generations and slaying anything that the Chaos Gods could throw at him. His only real challenge came from the greater demons of Chaos, and it was to be a greater demon that led to his fall. The demon's name was Fateclaw, and he was a spawn of the god Tzeentch, a lord of change. Gaulrange spotted this demon, leading a large horde of lesser demons, and having encountered and overcome greater demons before, naturally prepared to attack. It appears, however, that this time our dragon hero was deceived, as when Gaulrange shot down from the sky, like an arrow straight at Fateclaw, there was no retaliation, and even as Gaulrange struck the demon, it was said by those who saw the events take place that seconds before he bit off the demon's head, there was a smug grin on Fateclaw's face. As the elven and dragon forces let out great shouts of glee at the quick death of this demon general, a mist began to pour out of Fateclaw's ichor-soaked stump of a neck, and seep into Gaulrange's skin. As the forces of good looked on, their cries of adulation turned into gasps of horror. Helpless, they could only watch as Gaulrange's scales turned multicoloured, flowing like water, with leering faces fluctuating just underneath the surface. Spikes sprang up along his spine, and his eyes went a deep crimson with an evil look in them. Worst of all, as aforementioned, his head literally sprang in half from the tip of his snout to the base of his neck, as if a sword had sliced it in two. These two heads then fixed their gaze upon the elven battle line and charged. Like most other dragons, Gaulrange had always had use of a breath weapon. He was gifted with the ability to breathe fire. After having undergone his chaotic transformation, one of his heads still retained this ability. Most unfortunate for the elves, the second head now had a brand new breath weapon, a toxic mist that had the power to mutate and change anything that it came into contact with, turning elves into chaos spawn or insane mutants. It seemed that all hope was lost for the once noble Gaulrange, yet very soon after his transformation, the heads began to fight each other. You see, the noble good spirit of Gaulrange had not completely vanished in one of his heads, and in moments of lucidity, that head would see what it had become and try and attack the other chaos-infused head. A real split personality was going on. The Chaos Dragon Gaulrange has been around for thousands of years since that fateful day, and like most dragons, he spends much of his time asleep. Every now and then, he will wake up and go on a rampage, destroying buildings, killing people, and causing as much chaos as possible. However, it is said that each time he wakes, the old good spirit of Gaulrange is becoming more and more active and powerful, attacking the chaos-infused head more frequently and with more power. It is believed that one day the good head will defeat the evil one and his good self will overcome the greater demon that's inside of him, allowing Gaulrange to return to the dragon that he originally was, and finally allowing him to sleep in peace. So why do I love Gaulrange so much? Well, first of all, he's a dragon, and I love dragons, but let's face it, most dragons in fantasy are practically identical. You've got your basic fire-breathing, flying giant lizard. Gorlaunch is really original. He's a two-headed dragon that breathes fire from one head and a mutating gas from the other. There aren't many of them around. Secondly, most fantasy dragons just serve the purpose of being the big boss for the hero of the story to kill. Gorlaunch has so much more substance to him. This once noble creature tricked into becoming a monster, yet still retaining enough of his good self to be aware of what he has become and challenge the evil that's inside of him. This beautifully represented by his good head fighting the bad, perhaps one day defeating himself and finding peace again. In the novel Sigvald by Darius Hinks, the story of Gorlaunch is much more sorrowful and a much more poetic affair. Sigvald must retrieve an item from Gorlaunch's cave in the Chaos Wastes. In order to do this, he uses a music box from the elven homeland Ulthuan. The elven music is used to distract Gorlaunch, as it reminds his good head of the centuries before his fall to chaos, making him feel so ashamed that he violently attacks the chaos-infused head in the hope of ending his own life. So distraught is he over what he has become. Do I need to say any more? What other dragon has such a deep and moving backstory? And that's why he is number 8 on this list.